Hey everyone, welcome back to another LEGO video. Today we'll be taking a look at the LEGO Hidden Side bus set. This of course is actually a custom set, this isn't the real thing. Anyway, we're going to be taking a look at this custom set that I made of the Hidden Side bus, and something I'm definitely excited to do down the road is actually take a look at whether this will interface with the actual game. And if you guys don't know, Hidden Side is essentially the use of this app that allows you to sort of, combine digital play and physical play. And if you're interested more in that, definitely go check out LEGO's press release thing on that or whatever they did a couple weeks ago. Anyway, yeah, this new wave of stuff definitely looks really exciting. I thought I would build one of the sets. This probably has to be one of my favorite sets of the new wave. And of course, this is the ridiculous apocalyptic sort of bus. So this video is pretty much going to showcase the build for this set, and of course it contains a bus, this kind of porta-potty monster thing that they decided to make. I don't know why, guess it makes sense, and then a bunch of figures to go along with the entire set. Something I'm definitely excited to do down the road when the actual app comes out is actually try and see if the app will accept this as the actual set. Maybe we'll play around with it to see if we can get this to work, but that's something I will definitely do down the road when the app comes out. So definitely stay tuned for that, subscribe, support my channel, do all that stuff, and that's really all there is to say right now. Let's get right into the showcase of this set. So starting off, we're going to take a look at the actual main part of the set, the bus, and this bus is pretty crazy to say the least. It's designed off of a very classic sort of American-style bus, and clearly it is no traditional bus. It's absolutely covered with a bunch of apocalyptic details. That's probably the best way to describe it. It almost feels as though it could even be out of something like the LEGO Movie 2. So starting up the front, there is this ridiculous bumper built with some of those bar pieces, which is pretty nice, and also a ton of lights because, you gotta see, because this is a ghost town. I don't know where I'm going with this. Now on the hood of the bus, there are these two stud shooters next to the engine, of course, and you can actually fire these off, of course, because they are stud shooters. And this is a very crisp function that works incredibly well. Cool thing to note is that you could actually take off a lot of these kind of extension pieces, and underneath is basically just a normal front of a bus, which is kind of nice. That was a little thing I thought I'd add in just to make this a little bit more versatile. Of course, you can see this interesting design that is not a fire extinguisher. It's supposed to be a side mirror, but, guess that's sort of debatable. As we continue along, you can see there's a door to actually get in the bus, because you need that. As we go along here, you can see there's actually a bit that folds down. This is a really interesting little inclusion, and you can actually fold out this little bit with another ghost blaster, catcher, whatever you want to call them. I don't know what they actually are in universe. As we continue along, you can see some nice details that are built up onto the side of the bus, and this kind of ridiculous wheel arch, which should be built out of a yellow color, clearly, to match the rest of the bus, but honestly this color actually works pretty nicely too. It kind of blends in with the blue color. Now the reason they are in dark turquoise and not yellow is because LEGO just didn't make the piece in yellow yet. That's a new color for that arch piece, so we're just gonna have to live with that color for now. You can see this little hazard sort of sticker, which is put to good use, and just some more little details on the back. Honestly, the back of the bus is pretty uneventful. There really isn't too much detailing going on there, but I guess that's what it is, and yeah, let's continue on to the other side. Now, the other side of the bus is pretty similar to the side we were just at, and yeah, of course there are windows you can open up, the same sort of wheel arches. I've added a couple of little additional details around it to, kind of differentiate the sides, to just add a little bit more overall detail to the bus, but for the most part, both of the sides are very similar. Instead, there's a ladder in its place, and this ladder just allows you to get to the roof of the bus and access all of the other ghost blaster things. One of my favorite little features is, of course, the ability to open up the stop sign. That's pretty cool. I know it says stop fuel, but it's probably the closest thing that LEGO has made to a stop sign, or I just don't have a sticker that says stop on it. Anyway, that's pretty cool. There's some spikes going on with that, which is nice, gives it a bit more of a apocalyptic sort of vibe. And that pretty much brings us back to the front. Now, taking a look at the roof, you can see it uses a ton of yellow sloped pieces and some nice little angled pieces to give it some shape. The first thing on the roof here is this sort of movable ghost blaster catcher thing. and it's pretty nicely detailed. I quite like some of the techniques used here, including this one angled technique that allows you to get this really cool, almost 45-degree angle with a tile. And overall, it pretty much just meshes blue and trans blue together to create this really nice looking ghost blaster. Now in the very back, there is this sort of radar that looks like it's falling apart, and that's purposeful because it's supposed to be sort of this rickety radar thing, and overall it looks pretty good. The roof itself can be easily removed due to these tiles underneath it, and you can get a nice look at the interior of the bus. So with that, let's just take a look at the inside of the bus right now. Starting up at the front of the bus, you can see the driver's seat, and of course a steering wheel, which is pretty self-explanatory. Of course, it's a bus. It needs a driver's seat. And as we move back from that, you can see some sort of canisters, I guess, of some sort of stuff they're using to fight the ghosts. I don't know exactly. You can kind of go along with the idea of this. There's supposed to be some sort of like science lab, as one of the characters is supposed to be a scientist or professor of some sort. And so there's sort of this mobile lab inside the bus. There are of course some really nice details and stickers to go along with that sciencey sort of lab theme. And on this other side, you can see some other tools, including a microscope, which is pretty cool. One of my favorite techniques, if not my favorite, is this kind of sloped piece down here that is actually really interestingly designed, and it's basically just a ramp that goes up to the higher part of the bus here with the seats on it, but it's a really interesting technique, and it basically uses a hinge design. It's very similar to the technique that I used on the roof with that one ghost blaster that I explained earlier. But yeah, that's something that I really quite like about this. Of course, it's a bus, so it needs some seating, and in the back we've got 4 seats here, which is pretty decent. And then in the very back, you can see there's some storage space for all sorts of other things that you might want to throw in the bus. And that about wraps up the interior of the bus. Now, the bus definitely doesn't have the most detailed interior as it could have had, but overall I'm quite happy with the interior that I gave it, and it definitely makes sense for the theme that we're going with for this bus. Overall, that pretty much wraps up my thoughts on the actual bus itself. Quite happy with what came out of it, and I definitely really enjoyed putting this thing together. It took quite a few iterations to get right, but I'm definitely quite happy with the final result. Moving on from the bus, we have this sort of side build, which of course is the porta potty monster. This is a pretty interesting inclusion by LEGO. I don't know why they did this. I guess it sort of makes sense because there's construction workers in this set. Nonetheless, this is a pretty interesting thing. As far as anything that I'd like to say about it, I kind of took it in a bit of a different direction. Rather than going for more of a porta potty look, I went for more of a monster look, which is a bit of a deviation from what LEGO actually decided to do. Overall, I'm quite happy with this. It definitely looks like a bit of an interesting monster, and though it's pretty static, you can't really do anything with it, it's definitely a nice little side build. Last up, of course, we have the minifigures in here, and there are actually 5 in this set. And I hope I remember the names correctly, but we'll see here. Let's get right into them. Our first figure up here is Professor JB, I believe that's what her name is, and she's supposed to be one of the professors at Newberry High School, and there's not too much to say about this figure. I decided to use Wild Style's hair, actually, mainly because it has those goggles, which is kind of a key part for this scientist figure, and of course the lab coat and legs from the Ninjago movie CMF. And overall, it pulls together for quite a nice figure, and that's really all there is to say about the professor. The next figure is Jack, who is probably one of my favorite figures just for his design, and he uses quite a variety of different parts, including Kai's torso from the Ninjago movie City set, and rather than giving him a hat as he does have, he kind of has a hat-hood combo in the actual sets, so the best thing in my opinion was to actually give him the hood, and he's wearing this white hood, which works pretty well for him. And the second main protagonist of this, of course, is Parker, who is the kind of female protagonist, and she was definitely a little bit more tricky to build compared to Jack, and that's really just because her head piece is really complicated. It's this really intricate dual molded piece, and I ended up just going with a green baseball cap, and I guess it works, but there's not too much there. Last up, we have these 2 sort of construction worker minifigures, and they're both very similar and very generic, but something cool that you can actually do with them is swap out their heads to make them ghostly, and that's pretty cool, because you can actually do that in the actual sets, and yeah, I thought that was a little interesting feature to throw in with the figures, and that about wraps up the 5 figures that I put in the set. overall, I'm quite happy with how this custom set came out this time around. I've done plenty of other custom sets in the past if you want to go check those out, so definitely go look at those. And yeah, I definitely will probably be doing more with Hidden Side in the future, if you guys are all interested in that. And definitely one thing, as I said earlier, I really want to see if this app will actually, you know, like, accept this as a set. That will be something to you know, look at in the future when the app comes out. But that's really all there is for now. If you guys did enjoy this review, make sure to subscribe, support my channel, do all that stuff. And I'll see you guys all in the next video. Goodbye.